Hello ladies and gents, it's part 3 of what to do with Sprue. So, due to the old virus which we will not talk about, a lot of us are stuck at home and we might have a lot of Sprue left over and we might think what to do with it rather than chucking it away. I'm not saying you've run out of miniatures to paint, because that should never ever be the case. So if you're getting close, try to get some more miniatures, because don't run out of miniatures to paint. Just saying, if you've got all this sprue left over because you're getting through a lot of miniatures, this is one of the things you could do with sprue. So, I will start chopping as I'm talking. See if I can pat my head and rub my belly at the same time. Get a clear pot, a sealable clear pot, and make it as dry as you can. So clean out any water, put it to one side, and start chopping some sprue while you're talking to the lovely camera. So what I'm doing is I'm making a poly cement filler. And what is that? Well, poly cement, when using plastics, is fantastic. That sounds like it rhymes. So you just brush it on the two surfaces of whatever you want to stick. So I'll get two big surfaces rather than coating everything in glue. It's a lot safer than super glue, because if you do get it in your hands, it just gets mucky. It doesn't stick to you, it only sticks to plastic. So the idea with the poly glue is it melts the surfaces of the plastic together. So you got one surface, the other surface, while that's pushed together. So it's reasonably secure at the moment. Obviously if I pull it, it will come to bits. But the idea is it melts both surfaces together and adheres lovely to whatever you're gluing. So if you've got two surfaces of a model together, super glue is okay, it's alright, but you find if it's not a terribly well fitting model, there's going to be a bit of a gap. And you don't want to fill that in with super glue. Oh no. You normally end up using green stuff or something like that. Because you can file that, you can scope that. If you use super glue, it'll take the definition away. It'll look horrible. It'll look like those models you buy from eBay that are pro painted and they look horrific. They look like a 5-year-old's got hold of some glue and just destroyed it. Whereas poly cement, yes, it will melt a model if you get it on the surface, but it's a lot more, well, Citadel do one like this, and it's a lot more accurate because there's a little metal bit where you can actually go quite precise. Well, this particular bottle has a brush, so it's not massively precise, but it's still fairly precise. And super glue can be, but if you dribble it over the model, you've wrecked the model. It doesn't fill the gaps. It's very crude. It's fine with metal models, it's okay, but you still have to use green stuff and probably pin it if it's a metal model. But with this stuff bonds. It doesn't just stick. So, in the time I've clipped all these pieces, that, I'm pulling it apart like that, is very strong, as they say in the southwest. I can try pulling it that way, and you can just see, that was quite an effort to pull apart, but you can see it's bonding. It's actually melting the surfaces, and it's gone all gooey, but obviously the longer you hold it, the stronger it will be. And that is a proper bond. So if you want something to be tacked on, super glue's fine. But if you drop that model in a couple of years' time, that part that you've glued on will fall off. You'll probably never find the bit again. But this stuff will bond. You're more likely to break the model than you are to snap the glued component off. So that's a lot stronger bond. I'll cut those up, make it easier to melt. So what I'm suggesting is we cut some of this up, some of this lovely sprue. Normally we would chuck in the bin, put in the pot and pour some of that liquid poly. So this is from Humbro, but any plastic glue will do. Not super glue, but plastic glue. Glue that actually melts plastic. And normally we just smear it on the surface. And when you get the other bit of plastic, like I just showed you, it bonds. Brilliant. With this, I'm actually going to pour it in there and melt the plastic. Not just the surface, but fully melt the plastic. So it's coated it fairly well, but the more of this to plastic you put in, the more liquid this sludge will be. So this sludge, I hear you ask, what are we doing this for? Not just for fun, not because we're cruel, cruel to Sprue. You can see it's starting to melt already. We want to have a plastic version of green stuff, liquid green stuff, basically. So imagine a model in the ideal world, bonds together, nice and flat, like so. Brilliant. But sometimes miscasts, or if it's a cheaper model, or if it's warped over the years, there may be a bit of a gap like that. And we would try to fill it in with green stuff. Brilliant. And file it back, or even liquid green stuff. But with this stuff, we can pour it in, it will bond, and when it fully goes off, it's like plastic then. So we can file it, and we can sand it and trim it back to our heart's content, and hopefully it'll bond the surfaces together. So this is like a liquid poly plastic. So when it eventually melts, now I would leave this probably overnight anyway. Good, maybe 12 hours. And don't use this with a brush, unless it's a special brush like this that you know won't melt, and it doesn't matter if it gets gunky. So what I'll probably use this with is a cocktail stick or something. It just fills the gaps, and then you can trim it back. So like a liquid green stuff, but I find with liquid green stuff, it's not a bad product, but you have to put quite a few layers on, whereas this is going to be a lot thicker, and it has less shrinkage, because liquid green stuff does shrink. Whereas regular green stuff, I've got some right here, it's fine, it's okay. You know, it's not a glue though, so I want this stuff to be part glue, part green stuff in a way. So we'll come back after I've left it in here for, you can see the liquid poly already is becoming brown, and that's starting to goop up. So we'll see what it looks like in the morning, shall we? So after like 12 hours or so, obviously the longer you leave it, the more like goop it will be, should have this. So you notice no sprue left in there, just a thick liquid. Say thick liquid, I'll tip it on the side, it's a bit like molasses. It will eventually move, but you can make this as thick as you like. So adding more sprue to poly will make it a nice thick. You can see it's starting to move now. And that's how thick I've made it. You can see that now? It's just starting to move. So I'll open up the cap. You can see it's thick. But like I said, if you add a bit more poly or less sprue, whatever which way you want to do it, you will find it is starting to move. It is alive. That, it can be really thick gunk. So when putting things like barrels together, you can see I've used liquid green stuff to try to get rid of the line there. But why bother with liquid green stuff? I use half a barrel there to put in scenery. But when I stick 2 halves of a barrel together to make a whole barrel, you can see there is that line there. Now if you use super glue, which is fine, you will have to scrape it afterwards, use liquid green stuff or regular green stuff, sand it back. You know, it's a bit of a pain. If you use plastic glue, it will bond better and remove a lot of that line. So if you don't have plastic glue, or if the gap is quite excessive. So what I'll do in a minute is exaggerate it by trimming a section off here. So this is just for you guys. I'm going to make a bit of a divot. That's what people call me, a bit of a divot. There's a bit of a gap now. Plastic glue might not cover that. You might want something a bit thicker. So that's why I made this stuff. So when you want to spatula it on, don't use your fingers. Don't use anything plastic, because obviously it's plastic glue. It will mess it up. So I do have a few plastic tools that I use for modelling green stuff, things like that. Don't use that. You can use a knife if you want to, because obviously it's plastic glue, it won't attack the metal blade. But I will give a bit of a stir in there. Oh yeah, nice and thick. I'm going to use a stir stick from a well-known coffee... Ah man, it's stringy. Coffee supplier. Use whatever you want. Just donk it there. I'm going to put it more on the inside than I am on the outside. But don't worry, if it squidges out, it's plastic when it dries. Look how stringy it looks. And you can get rid of that stringy stuff too when it goes off. So I am gooping it good. Right. Squidge the two halves of the barrel together. It's good stuff. Squidge! Make sure it's lined up nicely. Now, you will see a bit is oozed out, and that's exactly what I wanted. All the way around. Could be a bit more in there if I wanted to. But when it fully dries, I can scrape that back and it will look good as new, because that is plastic basically. So not only will it bond like plastic glue, but if there is, I cut out a little divot, if there was an excessively big hole, a couple mil is very excessive in this trade, it will bond that. It will fill it, and you can file it and sculpt it back just like you would with green stuff. And it's plastic, at the end of the day. It's the same stuff that the actual barrel was made out of. Brilliant. So that's just a little tip on what you can do with sprue. So like I said, when it dries, like I said, chuck it away. When it dries, I'll scrape off and sand, and that's fine. But this stuff really shines when there's a big hole. It'll fill it, not a problem. There you go. Plastic glue at its best. And didn't cost very much at all. Just a little bit of poly, and everybody's got sprue. So if you need real thick plastic glue at any time, try some of this. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit that like button, and please subscribe. Thanks guys.